today. Thank you so much, Siad. Thank you for your leadership, for your many years of service to this community. Oh, thank you. Okay, very good. And I have three things to say. Dadka, dadka, and dadka. It wasn't too hard. They were right up there. And which you know means for our nation, for your country, for the people. I'd like to first of all thank Mr. Jibril Afyare, the president of the Somali American Citizens League, for inviting me to speak. I'd like to thank our three Somali members of parliament who, of course, are from Minnesota. We're excited about that. Sadiq Warfa, Sadio Salad, and Arifada Ali. Thank you. And of course, I am most honored. This is where everyone laughs at my pronunciations. That's part of what we do. I am most honored that President Mohammed Abdullahi will be joining through Skype today. As you know, we are home to the largest Somali population in the United States, and we are so proud of that fact in Minnesota. We are here, of course, to celebrate Somalia's successful election of President Abdullahi and to show solidarity between our Somali community here in Minnesota and the growing democracy in Somalia. We know how important this election was to Somalia's future, and the new president has rightfully warned that progress will take time. But with a leader committed to the people, I am very hopeful that progress will be made. And you know what progress has been? I got to be there along with Congressman Ellison, Congressman Emmer, at the reopening of the Somali embassy in Washington, D.C. That was progress. And we got to host the U.S. ambassador to Somalia right here in Minnesota. That is progress. Now, we have many, many challenges, as you know. We have challenges with hunger, and that's why, as a member of the Agriculture Committee, I've worked on policies that promote food security in the Horn of Africa to help our Somalis and make sure we stand up for them. In 2014, I traveled to Ethiopia, met with the head of state there, and made very clear how important the Somali refugee camps were and how important it is to stand by our Somalians. And when the Kenyan government threatened to close the Dadaab refugee camp, I led a letter to Secretary Kerry urging him to do everything in his power to protect the Somali families in Kenya. Now, we know you do your part, and that's why Congressman Ellison and Senator Franken and I work so hard to reduce the redundant regulations on remittances to Somalia, lessening the burdens for banks. We have more to do, but we will continue to fight for you. Now, we have one more issue. We know how important all of you are to our economy in the U.S., and as I look at these beautiful, beautiful faces and all these bright colors, I think of the diversity that you add to our state. But we had something very difficult happen in the last months, and that was the refugee ban that was put in place by this current administration. As you know, I strongly oppose that ban. I'm on a bill to repeal it. And while this is about numbers and about your important contribution to our economy, it is also about the individual people affected. It is very important that we tell their stories, and all of Minnesota was able to hear the story of Samira Dahir, the Somali refugee who lives in Minnesota with her 2 daughters. And when Senator Franken and I met with her, I made sure that those 2 little girls in their pink jackets were standing up front so all of Minnesota could see these young girls. And what happened then is we heard the story of how the mom had been trying to bring in her 4-year-old from the Ugandan refugee camp, how the minute she came to Minnesota for 4 years she'd been working with, well, what I would not call a radical group, Lutheran Social Services, on trying to bring her youngest daughter to America. And that little girl was supposed to get on a plane the Monday after the refugee ban was put in place, and she was not allowed to get onto that plane. But did we just sit back and say it was okay? No, we did not. We stood together. We stood with you, and you stood with that family, and we called the Secretary of Homeland Security. We said, this is not right. And just a few days later, she got on that plane and she arrived in Minnesota with her family. That is progress. So we have many fights ahead. We have many fights ahead to show the rest of the country and the rest of our state how important all of you are to our community, how you want the best for your children and you want the best for this country that has become your own. And you know how you do that. You do that by having your children go to school and do better and better and better and graduate, right? You do that by having people like Siad get elected to office. That's how you do it. And you do it by standing with the people of our country so that when they see those little girls in those pink jackets, they don't think of them as someone from a foreign land. They think of them as people that live in our state and are part of our state. That is progress. So as we celebrate today, as we celebrate those words above us, let us remember we are one Minnesota, and our Somali community is an important part of that one Minnesota. Thank you, everyone.
walaalayaal, Senator Amy Klobuchar waa saaxiibka ummadda Soomaaliyeed. Waxay u joogtaa Washington DC inay taageerto dawladdeena danta dalka dadka. We love you. Soomaaliya ha noolaato. Thank you.
mahadsanidtaasi waxay ahayd senataradayada Amy Klobuchar iyo saaxiibkay Siyaad Maxamuud Cali. waxaa halkan fadhiya saaxiibkayga qaaliga af Soomaaliga anaa baray Jacob Fry. Jacob hala taageero maadaama aan hadda la joogin. Amy Klobuchar booskeeda Soomaaliya waxaa noo geli doonto Marwo Sharaf xildhibaanad qaali ah Sacdiya Salaad Samatar Sacdiya Mehri. waxaa kale oo goobta aan ku arkaya aadna aan ugu faraxsanahay saaxiibkay Sadiiq Xirsi Warfaa. وهاجاك برنامجكي ayaanu sii gudagalaynaa halkiisina ka wadi doonaa haddii Allah awood leh oo ogolaado. markan waxaan jeclahay inaad ila soo dhaweysaan ku xigeenka madaxii qabanqaabada xafladan qiimaha